Hey, what is up everybody? So we're going to take a look at the starter deck format for Elestrals. This is only starter decks that can be played against each other. No changes to the starter decks whatsoever. This is extremely relevant because the first Elestrals tournament's this Saturday coming up. On October 7th, webcam-based tournament. Obviously Elestrals isn't big enough to have a store scene right now. And then the following weekend, they have an app-only tournament for starter decks as well. So we're going to take a look at what the best starter decks are for the format, so maybe you get a little bit of a sense of either what you're going up against if you don't have that deck, or maybe what you can do to try to win with your deck. We'll go over each deck, and I'll place them on a tier list where I think the best deck is, and let's just jump over into that. So we're in the tier list now. Let's take a look at our decks. We have the Earth, Fire, Thunder, Water, and Wind starter decks. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to actually start in the middle of the pack here because the bottom and the top are pretty community consensus on what is the top and bottom two. That middle point, I'm going to put the Thunder deck though. So the Thunder deck is, you might say, very good, but it's super inconsistent. So if you know anything about the actual constructed meta right now, is there are two decks in the top meta, like S tier, A tier decks that are in Thunder because there's really good Thunder cards. The problem with this deck is you basically have a Thunder Nexus package that is going to be extremely inconsistent with a bunch of 2-ofs in Sparkit, Astrabbit, Toxian, Zeus. And then you have this kind of aggressive combo strategy getting out Imperial, which you need enough Thunder Spirits in your Spirit deck to play. So you can't do the Thunder Nexus stuff if you're going to try to get an Imperial out. And then if you don't have enough Thunder Spirits and you're in the middle of the game, Technectric's a brick, Pandora's Box kind of bricks. You get Spark It without a Zeus or a Thunderbolt to Zeus or a Stadium turn 1. It bricks really hard. It's just a 4-1 at that point. So there's a lot of cards that just soft brick you where they don't do anything except be stats. That being said, it does have good removal options. If you do get the Boss Celestial Imperial out, it's a pretty clean sweep from there, usually with its high attack stat and ability to destroy cards in play for 1 cost. And then you also have Galvenom if you want to go pop 2 things, start aggro attacking things. You could potentially get a Galvenom and play, pop 2 things, pass turn, pop 2 more things, Ascendant Imperial, pop another thing. At that point your opponent just loses the game. So it's got really strong potential, but it's going to be lacking a lot of consistency. It doesn't have a ton of draw power except for Astrabbit, and you just need multiple cards constantly to make this deck work, or to combo really early to get Imperial out to make it work well enough. But it will probably put up some solid numbers in the tournament just because it does have some strong cards, and there's still a good, not a great chance, but a good enough chance that you pull off some Thunder Nexus style plays with it. So I'm putting it at number 3. Now we're going to move on to number 5, and I think this is fire for quite a few reasons. The biggest reason is there's no removal in this deck. The best way to remove cards in this deck is 1 Earthquake, 1 Tsunami, or one of your 2 Kinleos that both require an extra card to cast, or rather to Nexus to use the ability after you cast it, making this deck really struggle at coming back and removing problematic cards. And then, okay, well maybe it's got a way to take board control early, and it doesn't. You have Necruff and I guess Valkyries in the deck, and then everything else just kind of dies to everything. You have Warmite, which is only 3 attack on your opponent's turn. It's not going to do anything to defend itself. You have Floracne, which is a defensive wall, which isn't going to help the rest of the strategy. You have Humbust and Cinder in the deck, which are a mill strategy, which you're not going to be able to mill someone out in this format. There's just not enough combo potential with that Humbust to do anything. And at 2 Humbust, it's kind of inconsistent. But hey, on the pro side, you have Necruff, which is a great turn 1 creature. It burns your opponent from extra damage. You have Blazerus, which with the minimal amount of removal in the format, Blazerus can run away with the game, just attacking. And you get 2 Gorgon's Gazes, which shuts down a lot of cards. So that is a viable card, and it's one of the best cards in the game, and it's only found in the starter deck format, Infernal, so that might help you win. The deck can definitely win. It's just going to be a really heavy, just random RNG based deck of, did you get the Blazerus early? Do you have a way to keep a Necruff in play to ascend a Blazerus? Do you have a way to keep something in play to ascend a Blazerus? That's your win condition. In theory, you potentially can get a Trifernal out off the back of a Floracne defense wall, and Trifernal might be able to win you the game by popping all the small things as they come into play. But generally, your best bet is Blazerus and Eruptions, and hope that you can win before your opponent draws the many removal cards in all the other decks that the fire deck just doesn't have. Alright, moving on to number 4, I'm going to put the water deck here. The water deck is probably the most consistent deck in the format. It has draw power and Nectar of Gods, it has Aphros, it has Foamy, it has Smoltuga to pull out the Warmite, so there's lots of ways to be consistent in this deck, especially Foamy. The big issue is this deck, in order to win, is either going to try to play a Krakatuga early and burn your opponent for a bunch of damage, and then maybe use Ambrosia to get some more burns going, or it's going to try to get a bunch of defensive Elestrals into play Galaxy behind them, and then swing with a bunch of smaller, basically like 4, 5, 6 defense Elestrals, turning those attacks or defenses into their attacks. So it has to stall. It's a very defensive, non-proactive deck, which is going to hurt it, especially when this format doesn't have a ton of counter rune options to stop things. Being able to just start the aggression by attacking early really will help in this format. The water is just going to be pile a bunch of spirits into play, pile a bunch of Elestrals on them, maybe get a Majesty out to protect things from Boombat, and then start swinging from there. You do get Trident of Poseidon and Poseidon combo. You get you're immune to Tsunamis, which are in 3 of the starter decks. You're immune to Boombats and Kinleos and such if you get the Majesty out. So there's a lot of pros to the deck. It's just the deck doesn't have an efficient way to win the game. It just has an efficient way to stall the game. Hope that makes sense. I'm putting it at 4, but all these decks still have a chance of winning. It's just how you play the deck, and some decks are more consistent than others. Now we're moving to the top 2. Between Earth and Wind, and this is really contentious, I'm going to say that Wind is number 2. And the reason that Wind is number 2 is because Earth has a little bit more going for it. So let's talk Wind first, right? Wind is going to be super, super consistent and very aggressive. It's got a lot of medium stats, a lot of 4s. It's got Aramare at 4 attack, it's got Hydreic at 4 attack, it has Storlet at 5 attack, which are already a bunch of great cards. There's a bunch of stadiums in this format, so Antiveolia will help. It has aggressive cards that can combo at the end of a game, like Exaltair with Aeolus. You just have Aeolus to search out your toolbox in this deck. It's not a full Wind toolbox, but it's enough. And this deck can turbo out a Pantera so fast. Your opponent plays anything with 5 or 4 attack, you just start taking over that board state. You get to a Pantera, the only things out in that Pantera are like Boombat, Earthquake, etc. But then you just put a bunch of 4 and 5 attacks into play. Again, if you have a stadium in play with that, you're taking over that game still. So it's okay to lose the Pantera in this format. The big weakness is Wind's just expensive. That's always been the case. But it can just really clean sweep really fast. It's the fastest deck in the format. It's just get big boss monster out really efficiently, and even if you don't get big boss monster out, you get a bunch of really cheap, decently high attack Elestrals in play quickly, and you can tutor out all your 1-drops that you need if you draw the Aeolus. Lots of consistency there. And you have comeback cards like Resting on Your Laurels. It's just a good deck. And it's going to be very aggressive, very quick to win games when it does win a game. And it has just enough to go defensive. Like, you can play that Hydreic in defense, you don't take the damage, and then float it into Twindra and float it into Pater. Put an Aramare in defense at 5 defense, it'll stick on board. There's options there. But generally it's a super consistent deck, and it's going to be super aggressive. Just plop the Hydreic out and start running into things. And then that leads us to Earth. Why do I think Earth is number 1? The biggest reason it has some of the best removal out of all the other starter decks. It has 2 Earthquakes, it has Poison Tipped Arrow, it's got Boombat, it's got high damage stat, it's got everything going for it pretty much. It has rune removal with Equal Links. It's almost a constructed deck at this point. The weakness of Centaur is that getting Centaur out through September is really not going to happen much, but you don't even need to get there. Just playing a Sprouter with a Scythe of Demeter on it is already 5 attack or 8 defense. You can get a Spinosect, and then all of a sudden you have a 9 attack Spinosect. That's the biggest attack stat you can get on a 2-drop in the starter deck format. It only is going to get outed by 3 drops. So if you get a Spinosect in play and your opponent doesn't have removal for it, that Spinosect can win you the game just running through everything. And then you have like Rummagem for consistency. There's a lot of search cards against Sprouter, Rummagem, Draw Power. You have Equal Links for rune removal, Demeter for stat buffs. You can get over something with a little bit more defense. It's got a lot going for it. It basically has everything going for it. The big con again is you can't really get Centaur out with the special cast that often. And you can say that a lot of its 1-drops have defensive bodies, but at the same time, even Sprider with the defensive body, you can just throw a scythe on it after searching and I think win the game. So with that, I think those are the top 5 decks or rather the decks from worst to best in the starter deck format for my various reasons. And let me know how you guys think about the starter deck tournament coming up, or if this is well after starter deck tournament and we see the results. Maybe we'll come back to this and see how it goes. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one, and good luck in the tournament if you're playing. Or just good luck learning Elestrals and playing the game. Have fun. I'll see you guys in the next one.